I hated this movie. This movie sucked from beginning to end. There was about 1,000 decision points in this film where I thought to myself, did no one review it at all? Did no one take a second look? The scriptwriters should really be ashamed of themselves because it's like this film set out from the beginning to just not make any sense the entire way. Um, and I'm really disappointed actually because I went to the movie theater last night excited. I knew this was going to be my first video on my first new YouTube channel, and I'm taking notes about it, and I'm all excited, and just like as it goes on, I'm just getting angrier and angrier and angrier about this film because nothing in it makes any goddamn sense. The script doesn't make any sense. It sets up rules for itself that it doesn't follow through on, brings in new changes that haven't been set up before in any way. And I'm someone who usually look beyond this stuff, right? So I'm someone who loves horror movies. I've loved my personal favorite, right, is Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street. I've watched every single one of those movies twice in my life. I've seen all of the Leprechaun movies, including the terrible Back to the Hood. I just recently completed an entire rewatch of all of the Halloween movies. And yes, I did also watch Halloween Resurrection, and I would say that maybe this film is as bad as that one in the horror category. For those of you who don't know, this is just a movie about a woman who is cursed by, kind of an old Mexican tale called, the Weeping Woman or La Llorona, and it's just kind of a ghost creature coming after her, an apparition or whatever. So a lot of spoilers ahead here. If you happen to be sensitive about it, I'm going to tell everything about this movie, so just know that you've been warned now. So it just kind of starts off, it's actually decently paced. I've seen Pet Sematary and Us in the theater as well this year, and while I think this movie is actually worse than Pet Sematary, I found this movie at least it moved along a lot better, whereas Pet Sematary had a lot of points where you were just waiting for something interesting to happen. It was incredibly boring a lot, right? So I'd still almost prefer this, even though I might technically rate Pet Sematary with a higher score. But the writing was so awful. So first things first, it didn't seem to make much sense to me that the cursed family in this one would be, it's a Mexican myth. They have Latino and Latina actors in the film, all around as supporting characters, but the main character of this movie is just some random, white woman in the 70s with her kids, and it didn't seem to make much sense. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't have picked something that looked a little more, maybe they could have shot it in like New Mexico or Arizona, or maybe got a little farther south in California or something. It just looked like a regular house. You know what I mean? Like I could have seen this house here. I live in Minnesota. I could have seen this house down the street. So to me, that took a lot of personality out of it. Like I thought it would have been interesting to see a full exploration of kind of like a Mexican myth, something a little bit different. So that was disappointing. But it starts off with this other woman where the main character here, played by Linda Cardellini, she's sent over there. She's a caseworker. She's sent over to this woman's house who has the curse on her. Obviously we know that watching the movie. And when she goes there, it looks crazy. The lady there is acting crazy. The kids haven't been to school, and they're trapped in this room that's locked. She ends up getting the key. Linda Cardellini's character does, and she ends up opening the door and seeing that the kids are in there. There's a cop with them, so they take the kids away. And so then, they take them away. They end up staying overnight in this kind of, a Catholic health center or building or something. The kids are just staying there overnight. She says they'll be safe. And, of course, the next day, what happens? They woke up dead. Well, obviously, they wake up. They're dead. So they get dragged. You have the scene where she shows up. The La Llorona shows up. The character design of her is actually quite interesting, I think. But the problem from the first scene here is that they show her off way too much. This is supposed to be kind of like a haunting, ghost, spiritual movie, like Poltergeist or something, where you're kind of counting on it being creepy and weird and having weird things happen leading up to that. But this well-designed kind of person and the dress and with the, the kind of black, you might have seen pictures of her with the kind of black tears or whatever. That cool design is just flashed every 2 seconds in the movie. So you see her take this kid, and they wind up getting killed in a river far away. They end up drowning because the original story in the movie too is they show this woman drowning her kids because she's jealous of kind of how her husband is acting, and kills herself in this river, right? So she's going around killing all these other kids. So now she's taken these 2 kids of the woman who had been put in jail. They try to pin it on her, but she got let go because, of course, it wasn't her. It was La Llorona who killed the kids, right? Anyway, things start happening more and more, but when the caseworker, Linda Cardellini's character, comes in to see what happened with the kids, and seeing them, her son and her daughter, her son gets out of the car and ends up hearing the sound, seeing La Llorona again, and La Llorona's chasing him. It gets in the car, and then there's a scene where he's like, it's like trying to push the windows down, because it's kind of implied throughout the whole movie that she has to somehow get in, right? Physically, she has to be able to get in through windows being open or something. But of course, they don't really stick with any theme as far as like what has to be open and when it has to be open, how far it has to be open. She can open things, but can't open other things. So that whole thing falls apart really quickly. And it's just weird to me that, in one scene towards the end, she's able to grab a kid and yank him out of the house, flying backwards, invisible, at 1 billion miles an hour, and it's super fast, like a rocket going out. And then another scene, she can't chase a kid who's running 8 miles an hour away from her. Like, so none of that stuff makes sense at all from the movie. What as far as like what she can do and what you need to do to stay safe from her, that is not clear. And in fact, then as it continues, obviously the whole movie is about this caseworker lady and her kids and this fight against La Llorona now, who's attached onto them. And the lady whose kids died, the one who she was the caseworker for, says that she cursed her and prayed to La Llorona that she would kill the Linda Cardellini's kids and resurrect her kids, even though at no point in the fucking movie is it established that can be done. No one talks about that. There's no part in any myth. If you look it up, there's nothing about resurrecting kids. Somehow she just invented, like, oh, take those kids instead of mine, even though it just sounds like if this apparition existed, this poltergeist, whatever she is, that she would just kill them too. There's no reason to think that would happen. The movie doesn't set it up. And again, it's just another moment where you're like, okay, it's just a random thing that we decided because it made sense for them to, like, they wanted to move the story along and they wanted this thing to happen in a certain way, so who cares how the fuck we get there, right? Why give a shit about your writing? Why does it matter? And in fact, it even starts from the very beginning. The thing that pisses me off the most is, like, you see this pendant, right? So you see this pendant at the very beginning of the movie, and because they don't actually show you La Llorona, they do a flashback in the very beginning of the movie showing this murder scene of her kids and herself. And when she gets that's all you see is the pendant. You don't really see her face, right? And you see her in a veil in the beginning, but you don't see anything but that pendant. So you come to think that pendant is really important. And then somehow you see the pendant again later, and she ends up taking the pendant off of La Llorona. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit towards the end of the movie. Now, the big thing at the end of the movie is this battle now with La Llorona, and they fight her in the water because she tries to take Linda Cardellini's kids, the daughter, drown her in the pool they have in the backyard. Which again, I thought she liked drowning them in rivers. That was what was set up at the beginning. That was set up with, I think her name was Patricia, the other lady whose kids were already dead. Her kids were already dead, drowned her in a river, but for some reason, Cardellini's kids will just kill them in your backyard in the pool. Apparently, she just killed them in any body of water because she tries to also kill the kid in the bathtub earlier. So anyway, so they're in the pool, dragging the kid under. So Linda Cardellini dives in, swims in to do something, and she's now gotten this ex-priest guy to come in and try to help her fight. So he's standing out there, and he turns the whole pool into holy water, which zaps away La Llorona in that moment, right? She can't stay, which of course, he's an ex-priest, but again, he's still using holy water, and of course, holy water is such a fucking trope in all of these horror movies, and it's like, have you not watched horror movies? People who made this, like, it's a trope all the time. You could come up with something a little more interesting than just, oh, I made this all holy water, right? Again, so what he ends up doing is he makes it so the ex priest guy who's helping them fight it turns the whole pool into holy water. So La Llorona has to kind of vanish from there. She's not dead, but she has to vanish. And Linda Cardellini grabs this pendant. So you remember the pendant from earlier. Doesn't come back up. No one really talks about the whole rest of the movie. You think, oh, that's how she's going to kill her. So, so as they're trying to finally kill La Llorona, they bring the pendant upstairs, and somehow the kids get upstairs by themselves in the attic. And they've locked the attic. Of course, she opens it and gets up there with the kids. And the kids pull out the pendant. And what the pendant ends up doing is, like, making her look nice again. Like just a regular person. And she's, like, nice and sweet for a minute, but it's not part of killing her. During this whole climax scene. And so she's got this. So the pendant turns her nice, but then she turns left, looks in a mirror, and sees her, like, monstrous self with the black tears. And again, they've shown mirrors cracking around her, but never, like, it's never established at any point that mirrors cause her to see her true self, which is the dead self, or anything. So you're like, okay, so she sees the mirror, gets mad, it cracks, and even though they've got the pendant somehow can turn her nice. But the pendant in the pool, she explains, Linda Cardellini's character explains, the pendant, she grabbed a hold of it because La Llorona was wearing the pendant. So how the fuck is that pendant going to either A, kill her or hurt her or do anything to her when she wears the fucking pendant around her neck all the time? So you have to take it off of her and then show it to her. Like, again, this is what I'm saying. Like, none of this movie makes any sense. And in fact, when they kill her, the final scene, all they do is they just kill her by stabbing her in the chest with a cross. Nothing to do with the mirrors, nothing to do with getting in and out of the buildings, nothing to do with the pendant. All of these things that they've loosely established here or there, they've made little, played to a little bit here and there. None of it comes back in at all. And in fact, the thing that kind of made me realize how abysmally stupid the writers of this film were, and how, I don't know, just terribly bad at their jobs everyone around had to have been to not say anything on set. A director didn't notice. Fucking nobody noticed. Is that when the ex-priest guy comes in, he goes, all right, we're going to set up all these candles all around because La Llorona thrives in darkness, right? And it does go back a little bit to the earlier scene with the lady, I think her name was Patricia, whose kids were already dead, right? That scene when they walked into the house, there were candles everywhere. La Llorona, she thrives in the darkness. Literally 3 scenes before that, or there were 3 full scenes earlier in the film where she comes in and shows herself to the boy in the house in the middle of the daylight. She chases the girl's umbrella and knocks it into that pool. Again, she probably could have just drowned her real quick, but just decided not to in that moment because we had to have a movie that lasted an hour and a half, so that's the only reason why she didn't just drown this little... There was a scene earlier where the little girl sees La Llorona outside of her pool, and she keeps, like, kind of, like, uses her wind powers to fucking knock the umbrella into the pool. Kid goes to grab it. Some reason she doesn't try to drown her. She just shows herself off to terrify this kid. Even though she's clearly got super strength and super speed, didn't think it was worth it to just kill her real quick there for some reason. And so, but then again, that was on daylight. And then there was also the bathroom scene where all the lights are on and she, the kid is sitting in the bathtub and she starts to drown her, but then doesn't end up drowning her there too. So again, thrives in darkness, and I literally just chuckled out loud to myself in the fucking theater. If anyone heard me, they probably thought I was an asshole because I was just like, you just showed her in the daylight. She's been in the daylight this whole fucking time, multiple times. She's been under lights, she's been in the daylights, she's probably been in fog lights in a scene I don't remember. She's been there all the fucking time. And then they go, oh, she thrives in the darkness. Really? Where did you establish that at all in this fucking stupid ass film? Where did you establish that she thrives in the darkness? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Doesn't make any sense. And also, like they try to do when the when the lady Patricia, her kids, they're dead. She curses the other lady, right? Like you said, and that's how it kind of moves over. You can just target people. So now I'm wondering who did Patricia piss off, right? Because clearly you've got to get cursed by someone else who wants to take your kids from you. So with that transition happens early on, they try to do these creaky stuff, but it's like it goes from like doors creaking to full on like you see La Llorona running around and chasing people and doing shit. So they're trying to have it both ways of like this like cerebral, slow, creepy thing, but also this like terrifying monster that's in your face every few seconds. And so none of that stuff works. It's not scary at all when you hear the creaking stuff and the moving. They show like a little rocking horse, which again, like, ooh, a rocking horse moving when the windows are shut. Like, all right, that's about as cliche as anything can get in a horror movie, especially in the type they were going for. But then you show her in the next scene running around. You do close-ups on La Llorona's face. Like, it was a cool design, but either go full like she's a badass monster or she's a creaky monster who's gonna sneak around and play with your mind. Like, pick one and stick with it. Yeah, nothing. I mean, I think the ultimate thing is that nothing in that movie makes sense. Also, from the beginning, when the son sees La Llorona, he doesn't talk to his mom about what he saw at all when she attacks him in the car. The daughter never talks about seeing it. And in fact, at one point, the mom sees La Llorona, and La Llorona tries to attack the mom multiple times in this movie, even though supposedly La Llorona only goes after kids. Like, they set up all of these rules, and then they just add them whenever they feel like. It is the laziest type of writing that there could have been. And I'm disappointed that this has to be the shit show that I see for my first movie on my first YouTube channel. So I'm going to give this one like a 2, probably 2, maybe 3 out of 10. I would not watch it again. I have no desire to. If you value your time at all, I would not go see this movie. And instead, maybe just sit around the house and pluck out your nose hairs with tweezers, because that'd probably be a better way to spend an hour and a half than watching this bullshit. So, all right, that's it. Thanks for watching.